have so many pupils who are non-verbal but still have so much to say.
I want the exact same information that my hearing friends have.
There are barriers to communication everywhere, but I think it's time we look at the barriers as opportunities to reach out to everyone.
Soundscape fills in a lot of the mental map as you move.
Approaching intersection.
You can just put it in your pocket and go.
With ALS, you become locked in. But we see technology as a way to give back what ALS has taken away.
There's no better feeling than to hear a child say something that they've wanted to say and the look on their face after they've been able to say it.
When it's reading, I see spaces between the words.
And it's easy to focus on.
Anjay realized that here was something that could change his life.
Now that I have my phone, I can see exactly what was said, and that's been a huge help to me.
The system is learning as it goes, and the accuracy has improved tremendously.
Students can pick any language that they choose to receive the information. It's like we jumped into the future.
Because communication is very important for all of us, and we just want to be together and not feel left out.
Aider les personnes avec autisme à communiquer, il y a des images.
Je parle, je donne une information à Arthur et elle est traduite par l'application El Picto instantanément en pictogramme et après d'une façon orale.
Va t'habiller et te brosser les dents.
On va pouvoir remettre en place une communication qui est plus spontanée. Je crois que ça aide à recréer du lien.
Both my wife and I are totally blind, and we have a 3-year-old son that's in preschool. He can see, but his parents can't. So to be able to know what's going on at his school is everything. The Seeing AI app has the ability to allow me access to the visual world. Artificial intelligence is beginning to have an impact on the lives of people with disabilities, but it's only going to grow. There is still so much out there to be done.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know about you, but for me, it's videos like that about making the difference, which is really why I come to work at Microsoft. And it's been a fantastic day so far. I mean, I've been non-stop since 8 o'clock talking AI, and I've got 5 minutes or 4 minutes and 42 seconds to be the warm-up act today for you to compress the 20 minutes of content around AI and the enterprise I talked about this morning, but also leave time for Great Ormond Street to talk about their fantastic solutions, and then Cindy and Satya to come on to do Q&A. So I'm going to run through just a scene set a little bit about why this is important to us and where we think AI in the enterprise in particular is very relevant. When we think about the broad view around what we think AI is, it's around imbuing in machines human-like characteristics, whether it's reasoning, understanding, or interacting. And we think the business opportunity off the back of this is worth $1.2 trillion over the next 3 years. Or interestingly, that's what it was. When I did this session this morning, we were thinking about doing the slides, and actually Gartner, who presented this morning, came out with a research paper just a month ago, which says the business opportunity worldwide for AI just in 2018 is $1.2 trillion. And the pace of change in this space is going faster than ever before. And really it's about looking at those areas of reasoning, understanding, interacting, how we can bring intelligent technology to bear and apply it in different enterprise scenarios. When we think about it, and you will have heard some announcements. Yesterday we made an acquisition in the conversational AI space. There was a bunch of announcements last week at Build as well. When we think about the enterprise scenarios for AI, it broadly comes into these 3 areas. It's conversational AIs, and that's when you think about it in the context of bots, it's interacting both with consumers but also internally with employees. We had Jay Moran, the CIO of Unilever, here this morning, who was talking about how they use the Microsoft Cognitive Framework with their Unibot to help with HR queries. It's about rebuilding intelligent apps and infusing AI in all new applications going forward. And then for me, the big area, the transformational area, is about looking at business processes. And regardless of what industry our customers come from or what business function they're in, there's an application of AI that can absolutely transform the way that they go to work. And so what we think about from a Microsoft perspective to deliver our AI story is these 3 elements. There's the core AI platform, there's infusing AI platform, specifically talk about things like our cognitive services, the machine learning workbench or our bot services, and how we can help our customers build AI for their businesses. And the key principle here is actually we produce a lot of pre-built AI services. We have voice APIs, we have language APIs, vision APIs. And we train that, we do the hard work, and customers can just take these APIs, and we've now got over 1 million developers around the world using these. But we also allow people to customize it. They can customize in a healthcare scenario against medical images, or in a scenario where there's particular jargon. Again, Satya this morning showed a video of Meeting Workplace. It was a Microsoft video, lots of people using different jargon, and the custom learning APIs had learned what that means and applied it to their scenarios. So really what we want to do is provide the infrastructure, the services, and the tooling for all of our customers to accelerate their AI transformation. But we also need to step back a little bit and think about what are the purpose for using AI in these organizations, and think about the responsibility that sits behind it. And so many of you have read before, and I think there's copies already shared of The Future Computed, which was co-written by Brad Smith and Harry Shum earlier this year, and it really talks about the societal impacts of AI. It talks about the impact on jobs, it talks about the impact on how we can think about human-centric ideas and where machines can impact them. And out of this came a framework. And this framework really looks at a couple of areas that are important when we think about applying AI. Fairness and removing bias is really key. One of the things you might not realize is some of those APIs that do image recognition are really good at recognizing me, are really good at recognizing white men, but actually pretty bad at recognizing black women. And there's some inherent biases we need to do work. We're doing work on the technical side. We also need to think about in the context of making sure that AI is not biased. Then there's another set about reliability, safety, privacy and security with GDPR coming into force on Friday are really key, as well as inclusiveness. And the AI and accessibility video gives you an example of where we can take advantage of some capabilities. But for me, it's actually around transparency and accountability at its core. We want to understand why AI is making the decisions, and we want to also ensure that people who use it are accountable for its use. Please take the time to read The Future Computed if you haven't, because I think these issues will come up more and more. I was at a debate at the House of Lords a couple of weeks ago when they released their report on their ethical principles of AI, and I think it's really important we all understand that and the big impact it can have on our businesses. So that was a 5-minute compression of a 20-minute session this morning. I'm getting the thumbs up, but I want to introduce Neil because we really want to hear from customers about their innovative scenarios, and we've done some fantastic work with Great Ormond Street Hospital. So please, Neil, come on stage. Video. So a quick video first, it probably will make you cry, so bear with me.
Thank you very much. So I just want to give you a bit of an overview of some of the issues around how we implement AI in healthcare and some of the things we're doing with Microsoft to address some of those issues. As you've seen from the video, so Great Ormond Street Hospital is one of the world's leading children's hospitals. We're also very research active. We did more than 1,000 clinical research projects last year. And the question is for us, how do you use technology to become even better and give even better care for our patients? So in my day job, I'm Professor of Pathology, but I'm also the Chief Research Information Officer, which means my role is how do we maximize use of data and technology to move forward? And one of the things that we did a couple of years ago was started to review our digital strategy. And we did something a bit different to normal, and we said, let's forget healthcare completely. Let's just try and scope out everything that's happening in the technology and digital world and say, what would we like? How would we like this to be? And one of the strong results of that is what you see here, in that medicine, especially specialist medicine for places like us, is going to become a data analytics business. This is not going to be something that's tagged on at the end. It's going to be core. It's going to be core because we're going to have huge amount of data from personal health records, electronic patient records, sensors, devices, wearables, and we need to make best use of all of this. Now, medicine, compared to many other industries, is really just starting this journey. And much of the focus at the moment is around trying to make what we do a little bit more efficient or a little bit more effective or reducing time. And that's all good, but the real value comes from when we as doctors can be augmented to do things that we cannot normally do. We want to be able to use technology to make us superhuman. We want to be able to do new things. So, as an example, what I do in my day job, look at pieces of tissue under the microscope from children who've had biopsies to decide whether it's cancer or disease, for example. We already know that things like pattern recognition, things like looking through massive amounts of information and making algorithmic decisions, systems are already better. I want a system that becomes better than me at doing these tasks. We want to become better, not just more efficient. So the question really is, what has to be done? And there are a couple of big issues in healthcare. And the first is over here, what do we in healthcare ourselves need to do? Well, the first thing is we need to have data in a form that is machine learnable and that we can use. So we have 400 clinical systems at present, which we're replacing with a single clinical system from a company called Epic, which will bring all of the patient data into one place. But that doesn't solve the problem, because you now have data in one system, but in a proprietary system that's not designed for secondary use and research. So we've also developed a digital research environment by Iridia, which runs on Azure, where we can take data, de-identify it, make it fully GDPR compliant, have appropriate governance and audit, and we can use it for research. The single biggest problem, however, is here. Everything I've talked about so far is nobody's job in the health service. This needs a new type of person, a person who is a mixture of doctor, nurse, computer scientist, data analyst. These people don't exist at the moment. So one of the things for us is, how do we address this? And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. The last thing, of course, is partnerships, because we don't want to be inventing tools. We want to make use of tools. So why Microsoft? Well, first of all, and most important for us, is the strong emphasis on ethics and security, as you've already heard. We don't want to give our data to a company to do something with it and flick us something and say, this is interesting. We want to do the analysis, but we want the tools that you can provide. We don't want to have to relearn from proof of principle through to scaling across the hospital. We don't want our staff to have to learn new tools every time we want a new cognitive service. We want a common platform that we can teach people. And finally, we want a system that gives us the ability to scale up for new things. So, for example, we know that IoT is going to be huge in healthcare, and particularly the requirement for IoT Edge. And we want a platform that we can link all of these things together to. So, an issue also is, how do you get clever computer scientists to come and work in healthcare? And we're very lucky. We have a very good relationship with UCL, and we have something called the Industry Exchange Network, where we have computer science students that come physically to us and sit and do projects with us. But back to the thing I mentioned to you before. How do you bring together, both in a physical space and conceptually, computer scientists, technology companies, doctors, nurses? And no such thing exists at the moment in the NHS. And we've set up this, which is our Digital Research and Informatics Unit, which is a physical space adjacent to the hospital to specifically bring people together to work on health problems. Now, when we're deciding in that space what are we going to do, we have a set of core principles. And the core principles are, everything we do should improve either the patient outcomes or the patient experience. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of those in a moment. But a really important thing is this bit on the end here. Many of our patients are long-term patients. They're in hospital for weeks, months, some even years. So we actually have a school in the hospital, a full Ofsted registered school. About half of our patients have some form of disability. So how do you run a school when half of your class is bedbound across the hospital? So this is a massive opportunity, and unique really, to explore how you can use technology to bring together healthcare, education, and accessibility together. So to just give you a couple of examples of the kinds of projects that we'll be doing, Doctor's Base Code is very similar, actually, to the idea of the example that Satya showed earlier for the meeting, which is essentially using speech recognition, speech to text, etc., but to pick out entities. And the idea of this is to help people training. Doctors or nurses in training, they may be in a consultation, they may be listening, but they can't keep asking questions and putting their hands up to ask about specific things. So the idea would be at the end of the consultation, not only do we extract those entities, but we can then intelligently look them up and summarize the latest literature, look at the latest results on those drugs, so that the people training have a clear, concise, factual summary of what's happened. Now, we're starting that for doctors and trainees, but you can easily see this could well be adapted for patients and their families. Not a transcript, but an interpreted summary of what was talked about during that consultation. Project Heartstone is a secure IoT project, which seems really simple, but actually solves a real problem for us. Many of our patients are under 5 years of age, so they're too young to use mobile phones, but they're in hospital, and their parents are at home with the rest of the family. How do they contact the children? And Heartstone is a really simple but highly secure IoT device where basically the parents can leave a message for the child and the stone glows and they just have to pick up the stone to hear their parent's voice. And again, you can think of lots of potential applications for this. Project Physio is a whole range of projects that have been running for some time around how you use gamification. Now this is really important for us, for our population. How do you get kids to do physiotherapy? It's boring, they don't want to do it. But if you can gamify it, and start to have high score lists and challenges and all sorts of other things. And we've now got a whole platform that started off around physiotherapy for cystic fibrosis, but is now a platform for how you develop gamification in schools. And then the last thing is going to be a relatively large project, which is around how do you use devices, cameras, sensors, etc., to objectify what goes on in a hospital for training purposes. So if a procedure's been carried out, at the end of the procedure, the feedback you normally give to the trainee at the end is to say, well, that was quite good, but you could have done this or you could have done that. Whereas actually what we want is that information to be fully objectified, a bit like a Formula One pit stop, so that we know exactly the optimal time for this. We know exactly where these things should be. And there's a whole interesting piece of work around there. The last part, though, and this for me is a really nice way of how the relationship, the wider relationship with Microsoft. As I said, lots of our patients are anxious, are coming to the hospital, and similarly, they're long-term patients. So it's not just around outcomes, it's also around experience. And one of the really cool things that we've done with Microsoft is the entire hospital is now being built in Minecraft. Now this is potentially huge, because imagine you're now a child that gets a referral. You can log on to our version of Minecraft and go and see the ward where you're going to be. You can look around the hospital. You're bedbound in the hospital. You can interact with others. You can go and see the bits of the hospital you're not allowed to see. You can go in the operating theatres, go in the chief executive's office. So there's all sorts of interesting ways to explore that wider relationship. And ultimately, everything we are trying to do is around the concept of how can we use technology to improve children's healthcare. And really excited to be doing this with Microsoft. Thank you very much.
Again, I'm a little blessed because I get to see some of these demos and hear these scenarios every day. And it does come back to thinking about the impact that our technology can to make a difference. If we think about the mission statement of empowering every person and organisation on the planet to achieve more. It's really these types of scenarios that we make a difference on. But I wanted to just level set before we have Cindy and Satya come on board, because the theme for today has been about transformation for AI. And so can I get a quick show of hands for those in the room who are currently working with customers today on AI projects using cognitive services alike? And everyone who's not, is there, from what we've talked today, my ask is to go particularly on some of the out-of-the-box services and have that initial conversation. Because hopefully you've seen from what Paul talked about, areas that you might not think at all are applicable to the use of this capability absolutely are. And it's not just about bots and conversational AI, but that absolutely should be your first point of call. I do recommend you talk to your customers both for their external usage, where they interact with external consumers and citizens, but also for their internal use for employees in their organisation. But actually, more than that, think about business process. In the context of Great Ormond Street, when you think about the kind of processes they're putting in place, you might not naturally think about the application of AI. But any place where you've got large sets of data, where you need to compute on that data and you need to come up with some insight, is an opportunity to work in this space. And so I really highly recommend that you go back to your customers you might not think that AI there's an initial opportunity for, but actually go and investigate where the business process could be applied to and how we can bring this technology to bear. So with that, I think it's been a fantastic day this morning. I really appreciate everyone coming in this afternoon, as everyone on the live stream. With that, I'd like to introduce Cindy Rose, who will bring us on to the next part of the session. Thank you very much. Sorry, boss.
Afternoon, everyone. Barely got a chance to catch my breath there. It is wonderful to see you all here today, and thank you so much to Michael, who we've made really work quite hard today. And I also want to thank the amazing Great Ormond Street Hospital team. I'm not sure where exactly they are. Thank you so much. Your vision for harnessing the power of HI to improve patient care and healthcare for children is nothing short of inspirational. So thank you for supporting us here today. So as you can see by all the billboards around, we had a BDM event here this morning. And it was all about leading transformation with AI. Satya and I have spent a whirlwind of a day with customers, which has been really eye-opening just to hear how our customers are thinking about AI, thinking about how to use it to accelerate their transformation, some of the challenges and blockers and opportunities that they're seeing. I hope you all get a chance to go up to the 28th floor and see the demos and the customer scenarios we've set. If for no other reason, the view is spectacular. So do wander up there. But also, as we look ahead to FY19 and we get into account planning, I'm just signaling we are going to be looking with your help for every one of our customers to be thinking about how they can bring AI to life within their organizations to accelerate their transformations. So look, I know there's one person you'd much rather hear from than me. So without further ado, please put your hands together for our CEO, Satya Nadella. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's fantastic to be back here in London, and I had a chance yesterday to spend some time in Cambridge with our research labs, and this morning here at this event, and as well as with customers. And in fact, I don't know, we have at least 3 or 4 more to go. For me, it's always just super energizing to be in the field, to have a chance to meet with our partners and customers, and most importantly, to see all of you in action. Because that sort of, in some sense, brings home for me our mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet. To achieve more, as I always say, has to really be the place where we all draw energy from. It just cannot be a set of words that you just put up on a slide and forget, but it's something that constantly, every day, has to help us really find that energy in being able to build the great technology we do, but most importantly, helping others build their own technology in a world where every company is a software company, every company is a digital company. And I tell you, in the meetings I've had today across every sector of the economy in the United Kingdom, and what we're able to do, it's unreal. I mean, from an oil company that is, and when I think about our own footprint, having, obviously grown up at Microsoft for 27 years, it looks like, I've seen multiple generations of our own technology and their impact. But what we are doing today is so much more mainstream for customers than ever before. We were just in a discussion where we, for the very first time, are able to connect things that have always been a dream. I mean, you may say, wow, this guy has strange dreams, but it was always a dream to sort of say, wow, can we take things that are connected to the internet, then be able to sort of actually have that data represented in a rich data model in something like Dynamics, and then to be able to do AI reasoning on it. And lo and behold, that's the type of stuff that we are building now. And even just the sheer ambition of these projects as envisioned by our customers is just phenomenal. So I think, to me, when I think about the new platform that we're talking about, the intelligent cloud and the intelligent edge, and I must say, if you take any of the aspects, take what we talk about in terms of creating multi-sense, multi-device experiences, what we're doing in gaming, what we're doing with Microsoft 365, what we're doing in Dynamics, and just envisioning it, building it completely differently than what we perhaps did for 35 years, 30 years, 25 years, depending on how you want to think about it. This is a fundamental departure, right? Which is, it's not like when somebody says, well, I'm moving to Office 365, it's not like they're moving from Exchange to something that's just a cloud managed service. It's just a completely different experience. One of my favorite demos to sort of show people is just bring up your Outlook mobile on your iPhone or Android phone, and then go to just click on the people in your graph or in your contacts and get to Works With. Right? That's actually Microsoft Graph lighting up. In other words, we are taking the activity of your communication and turning it into a feature in a product. Right? That's not like something that was just all in Exchange, 1,000 years ago, and we just migrated to the cloud. This is just new ways for us to think about what the product is, what's the value to the customer, because most people talk about culture and how culture needs to change by breaking down walls across functional boundaries. Guess what? I talked to multiple CEOs today who were saying that's the challenge. One way to do it is to just observe how people actually get work done by communicating across. And you can discover it right on your phone. Right? That's the type of innovation that we are bringing to market. So I want us to go out with confidence and make sure that there's still a massive gap between what I would say is our product, our capability, our customers' usage of this. But that's where I think you all come into action, where we have to get much better at being able to not only get our products out there deployed, but used. So these customer success folks in the room, you've really got to make sure that our customers are able to get the value out of all of this by showing them what it means to use these products. Similarly, let's talk a little bit about this world's computer. That's kind of how I'm trying to talk about and frame even Azure. It's phenomenal. You could say, hey, look, we came from behind on Azure. I mean, versus AWS. But for the first time, make no mistake, we're the only hyperscale cloud provider that actually has the edge all the way to Azure Sphere with one common programming model, one common CI/CD loop, all of the architectural advantages that go with it. Right? It's no one else. AWS can't claim it, Google can't claim it. And just at the time where every autonomous car to every elevator to every refrigerator in the home is all going to be generating data. So in other words, this is not something way into the future that you need the edge. As we know, data is going to have gravity. Gravity, that means compute will go where data is getting generated, and who else can provide that versus us? No one. And so that's another massive shift in some sense, the secular change in technology and where it's going, and our ability to serve more of the customer expectations and scenarios. But ultimately, though, all this will come back to us having that culture that allows us to not only have high ambition for what it is that we do technologically, how it is we show up with customers, how it is that we do have that impact that all of us seek, but everything that is only possible because of the culture we have. And the way, I mean, the thing, if there is anything that we have done with our culture is to frame it so that we can basically be comfortable in our imperfections, right? So this is not about claiming that somehow we've achieved anything or we've reached some destination of cultural transformation, because we've always said, right, it's a continuous process of renewal, and the key word being continuous. And where we are is a little better maybe than yesterday, but not enough. And that means, you know, starting with me being much more comfortable acknowledging our fixed mindset, right? The classic thing that always happens is somebody will come to me and say, Satya, we found those 10 people at Microsoft who don't have a growth mindset. And I wish it was that simple. But the reality is that it starts with me really being more responsible or more responsive to my own fixed mindset. And being comfortable in it and being confident enough to be able to say, you know, I'm imperfect, but next meeting I'm going to show up to, I'm going to try and make sure that we have a more inclusive culture, because it's the individual behaviors of each one of us that shapes this inclusive culture. It's not like when people say, Microsoft, we need to do better to make sure that people of all, you know, both genders and all ethnicities can in fact contribute. It's our collective responsibility, and it's our responsibility in every meeting, in every setting through individual behaviors. That's where I think we have a long, long, long way to go. When we talk about One Microsoft or customer obsession, same thing. Any one of these projects that we're even talking to with our customers, they're trying to bring together these three clouds of ours. So our organizational boundaries are always not going to be conducive to what customers are going to want. And we will have to transcend them. And you, especially in the front lines, are going to be the ones who are going to show us the mirror, who are going to make, you know, keep us accountable to living this ideal of One Microsoft, living this ideal of customer obsession, because you are the voice of the customer. But that's what we're going to practice. And we're not going to be perfect, but the key is not to be disheartened nor satisfied. Both of those are fine. Or rather, one is fine and one is not. But don't be disheartened, but don't be satisfied either. And that, I think, is what we will have to do around our culture. So that's sort of really what I wanted to at least share with you as top of mind, and then I'm happy to take your questions, comments, criticisms, whatever it is that you have. Go ahead. Okay, Mike? I would rather stand. Yeah.
Okay.
Because otherwise I may go to sleep.
Okay, good. So we've got a few questions out there and some roaming microphones. While you tee up maybe the first question, I'll ask you one, if you don't mind. So I was fortunate to be in building 21 last week with our friends at RENF, and they showed me the new layout for the new campus in Redmond, which looks amazing. And I noticed that right in the middle of the campus there's a cricket ground. And I was just wondering if that was your decision.
Believe me, I had nothing to do with it. It's the demographics of Microsoft today. Right. But, you know, I'll tell you, there's a little bit of a controversy, which is whether the cricket pitch is going to be multi-purpose or not. And there's supposedly a raging war that how could one play baseball on a cricket pitch, but we'll let people decide.
Okay, good. Do we have a question? Great.
Hi, I'm Jack. As an apprentice, what would be your one top tip for someone just starting their career journey? And what was something you learned early on that shaped you and your career path? Thank you.
Sure. you know, the best advice, especially for someone starting off, which I reflect back, I wish I had gotten even a lot earlier. So you're in luck. So now with that anticipation, let me, is just be confident. But I always say this, which is there's this very, very thin line between confidence and hubris. You need confidence, but you got to avoid hubris. In fact, I picked this up from a cricket coach of mine growing up in very chaste Hyderabadi Urdu, which I can't repeat here, is what he would say this. And it has always stuck with me, I must say. But it's much later in life I've understood even that distinction. Because I think a lot of us do things out of hubris sometimes and mistakenly thinking that it's confidence. Because how do you get confidence? You get confidence by actually working hard, by practicing, by thinking about what is all the exception cases. You just don't go in and say, I'm confident, right? You have to have prepared for it. So that's, I think, what I would say. You know, there's no harm in working hard. And then with that comes confidence.
Great question.
Hi, Satya, I'm Chester, the intern on the PR comms team here. So my question is, what's the most inspirational application of AI you've personally seen?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. In fact, this morning, what's the name of the gentleman? Tom?
Nabarro. Yeah, Nabarro.
Nabarro?
Tom Nabarro.
I mean, this morning, I mean, it's 8:15 in the morning, and we're getting ready for this keynote. I tell you, it is just so phenomenal to watch this gentleman. What he was doing was, he's a programmer. He had a ski accident, got paralyzed. He works at Intel. He was showing me his Surface as well as his standard issue, I think HP machine. And how he was basically, he brought up VS Code, and he was typing in VS Code, F# using eye gaze. And when you think about what you can do for people who are trying to participate in our economy and fully through AI, I must say I'm just sort of always amazed by some of the things that we're doing around accessibility. But it's not just because that's something that I think a lot about, and it's sort of something that, interestingly enough, at Microsoft there's been a real renaissance in some sense. And by the way, it started in the UK, because the first project that truly inspired me was the Guide Dogs project, and to sort of see what we've now done with Soundscape, and of course the same thing with Seeing AI also is inspired by Saqib and the work he did here. It's phenomenal to see what's happening around it. But, you know, quite frankly, I was very thrilled to even read the Prime Minister's remarks yesterday on what it is that you're all doing in the UK. Because, yes, you have a great structural advantage of having socialized medicine. That means you have, I mean, see, in AI, the real scarce commodity is ground truth data. The ground truth data then that is opened up for innovation is a fantastic way to improve the health outcomes of the population at large. And I think we as Microsoft are very uniquely positioned to participate in helping the United Kingdom realize that vision. So there's lots and lots of different use cases, I think. Find your particular passion and then really think about. The one design choice we've made is to really think about how AI can help humans. How can it augment human capability, not replace it? Because I think that's a design choice, and even in some of the demos I showed or the videos I showed, they were all explicit examples of it, whether it was that inner eye project coming out of MSR Cambridge for a radiologist, or whether it was even that, ambient device in a doctor's office that was taking out all the burden of transcribing notes after having seen the patient. And, you know, I think there's many, many cases where I think AI can have a profound impact.
Guys, we're going to have time for a few more questions, but first I just wanted to pause proceedings. You all know that today is the one-year anniversary of the bombing in Manchester, and the rest of the nation is commemorating those horrific events with a moment of silence. So would you please join me and the rest of the nation in a minute of silence? Thank you, Satya. Thank you, everyone. So maybe we could tee up the next question. Yeah, Andrea?
Hi, Satya. I'm the HR lead in the UK, Andrea. I have a question for you personally, which is, what does inclusion mean for you? And as you, what's your perspective on how we measure it, or measure our success in weaving inclusion into everything we do as a company, internally and externally?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, to me, in fact, I used to use these words, inclusion and belonging, interchangeably, and then, you know, in some sense, I've now educated myself to even think about all of these things have to be earned as an organization. So, for example, first, let's start with representation, where we need a lot of progress that needs to be made, whether it's gender representation or ethnic diversity that we need. And we have work to do in all functions, but we in particular have a real challenge in our engineering ranks. And so let's talk a little bit about that. I feel year over year, we have now actual metrics. We've also changed the compensation system for me and the SLT, which is based fundamentally around those representation numbers, which is all very, very helpful as a way to say it's just not the talk, but you have to sort of put the money where your mouth is, so to speak. And so therefore, I'm not saying that that's just changing just incentives, which changes everything, but we're getting serious about it. So this is, I would say, that representation side. Then inclusion is that next phase, because even if you think about it, the class that's coming in, the intern class today, is the most diverse from a representation perspective. It's unbelievable. This is even in engineering, unbelievable. Except they're all going to come, they're going to look around, and they're going to say, wow, this place doesn't look like anything like us. So that's where inclusion will matter. That means every mentor, every manager who has somebody who is not in the quote-unquote majority will need to feel included. This is all the stylistic ways in meetings, outside of meetings, who is really going to help them make the right connections, be successful. That's what I mean. And I think that's where, I think it's a hard one to measure, except that if you don't have an inclusive culture, you're not going to have all the representation numbers. In other words, you are going to attrit. You are going to have no promotion velocity. Those are all things we'll track. So I'm sort of more on the camp of let's track the first, but then you can traverse the tree and figure out which groups are able to do it or not, and then have, in some sense, people vote with their feet even. As somebody has always said, which has stuck with me, and in fact one of the town halls they said to me, which is, most people don't leave companies, they leave managers. And I think that's essentially where we'll have to take. That's kind of where, it's not, this abstract thing called Microsoft. It's made up of all of us. There's lots of leaders. There's not just the CEO. And so therefore, every leader, in some sense, will have to create that inclusive culture. And if not, we're not going to succeed, and it's going to be pretty blatantly there for everyone else to see. And then I think if we do a better job there, then I think is what we'll sort of get to earn the right to talk about that sense of belonging. And so at least that's how at least I'm educating myself on what this journey looks like.
I think we have time for one more.
I'm Marta. I'm the solution specialist for data and AI. My question is, through your conversations with customers, what do you see the opportunity for AI to be in the financial services to make the sector more ethical?
Oh, more ethical? Oh, man. You know, one of the most fascinating things that happened to me recently was I met a bank CEO, and he said, hey, I want to understand the state of RL. And I was like, wow, this is a CEO of a bank asking about reinforcement learning as the first question. So to your point, as far as AI and banks go, it's clear as day that it's going to be fundamentally changed, because every decision you make around, let's say, take something like credit, is going to be driven by machine learning and AI, which is very different than even the statistical means that they had in the past. Now, to your point about ethical choices that banks can make, I think a lot of ethical choices can, in fact, be made even which are great for their business. Take inclusion and credit. At least I know in developing world that the challenge of credit is one of the biggest challenges of humanity. Right, to get anything done, you know, and especially in the time of absolute need, is when you don't have credit. And so just imagine what the efficient frontier of access to credit can look like in a world where those credit decisions were being driven by AI, where credit risk was not a crude instrument, but was a fine-grained instrument. So at least I would just say that even something like credit or any other risk calculation they do can in fact lead to more financial inclusion. And financial inclusion is most important to people who are lower down in economic strata. So that's in some sense an interesting way, and I'd not even connected the dots until your question, but in a way, if we can take some of the AI capability, or in fact even our pitch to the bank would be, look, you can create an amazing amount of social good and profit if you brought your data estate and started doing things like making your decisions around risk and credit, using some of the more modern techniques so that you're precisely pricing things versus using crude instruments. It's a great question, but I think that's kind of, by the way, that I think is the essence of the pattern we can replicate in many, many industries. I think today there's a lot of talk about AI being challenging in multiple ways, whether it's the ethics of it or the job displacement, but we can take these things and turn them around to be able to create real social benefits across the economy and across the society. Thank you all very, very much. It's been a real pleasure to be here, and I look forward to being back and again engaging with all the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you've got me again. I think we have London Tech Week video, which we'll play, and then I'll close out and thank everyone for coming. Thanks, team. I hope you've seen from that video, today has just been the start of what we're doing in the market around AI. It was very focused around BDMs today. Next week, or next month rather, at London Tech Week, there's a big focus on AI as well, as a whole lot of other subjects that are coming down the line. I want to say a big thank you again to Great Ormond Street Hospital for coming and presenting not once but twice today. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Minecraft demo, it's absolutely fantastic. I also want to put a big thank you in for everyone that went into organising this event. I mean, these employee sessions are hard work, the morning sessions are hard work. I know Cindy thanked it, that I kind of get wheeled on and off stage in the face of it, but the guys did a fantastic job in getting all the speakers arranged and bringing everyone together. With that, out the back, there's, I think, some nibbles. We've also got some copies of Future Computed left over for first come, first serve. Again, thanks everyone on the live stream. Thanks everyone in person. Have a great day.